Hello everybody and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, where we last left Artemis 3 on its way to the moon. Now we are bringing a fair amount of fuel. The question is this enough for our SLS? We'll find out. If not, we'll do a tanker mission, but for now, we'll see. So let's warp on forward here until we reach our braking burn. And then we'll need to do an inclination change and then rendezvous up with the starship. And we'll do some fuel transfer and we'll see how that ends up going. I'm not 100% certain that this will be enough. We'll see. I hope it will be. But if not, a single refuel mission, if we do it correctly, should do the trick, in theory. So what we're going to do here, of course, is warp a little bit forward here. 20 seconds, 10, and 3, 2, 1, 0, mark. Okay, so let's get our braking burn done here. This will, of course, burn up a little bit of our fuel, no doubt about that. But we'll just need to get rendezvoused on up, and we'll have to separate to determine if we have enough fuel. My cutoff for that is going to be 3,000 meters per second, which is probably overkill, but I just want to be absolutely certain, right? So we'll just position right about here. And now we're going to need to do an inclination change. So we need to target the Starship HLS, and our inclination change, we're going retrograde here. So our inclination change should be about here, 7.5 degrees off. This would have been more efficient if we had fixed this at Kerbal, but here we are. Okay, so we're just going to bring that around to about there, 43.9 meters per second. Sounds good. And we're only going to need, like, I don't know, 500 meters per second in this. So that would be like a quarter tank in order to get us home. So we can use a lot of this fuel as well. But I have a feeling it's not really going to be enough. We'll see. We need to warp forward to our inclination change here. And then we'll do our rendezvous burn. We'll see how that ends up going. But it shouldn't be too bad. We should be in a reasonable orbit for getting that good to go. So about 3 minutes to go, 1 minute to go, and warp is complete. 50 seconds, 40, 30, 20, 10, and 3, 2, 1, 0, mark. A little further than that. That'll do. Okay, so that should put us at 0.0 degrees. Fantastic. And if we were to go for a rendezvous here, what would that look like? Actually kind of close, but it's getting further away. So we're going to have to go for the rendezvous about here. That is in about 5 minutes. That's not too bad. How close is that? That is 3.6 kilometers. I mean, we can definitely dial that in a little bit. 1 kilometer, that's good enough. So we'll hop over to this node, 37.1 meters per second with a relative speed of 36.4. So really not too bad there. We'll get rotated on over. There we go. And let's warp forward these 5 minutes or so. Of course, it'll drop us 1 minute before, so we'll warp forward a little bit further here. 3, 2, 1, 0, mark. Good enough. So that should put us in a very similar rendezvous orbit, 1.5 kilometers. That's fine. We're going to be going this way. I almost warped us to here, which would have been problematic. We need to warp about here. So we're going to warp on around, and in the meantime, we'll switch over into target modes. We can see that the starship is right up over there, and I do want to keep us in kill rot for the time being. We're pretty slow to turn here. For the moment, do we want to burn this retrograde? Probably is the answer. I think we're a little too far out still, so let's just go to relative velocity minus, and we'll warp forward a little further, to about here or so. Okay, this should be close enough. Cool. Now we're significantly closer, about 4 kilometers out, and this should be a more efficient correction burn. So we'll do a correction burn about here or so, putting us in kill rot. Just pushing that node ever so slightly down. Looks good. 0.4 kilometers. Okay, so we're going to warp in a little bit closer here. We probably need to push it a little further. That is accurate. Okay, so one more corrective burn somewhere around here or so. Yeah, 0.0 kilometers. Okay, we're going to go to relative velocity minus now. We can see that we're about a kilometer away from our rather ginormous starship. And we are, of course, going to need to decelerate fairly soon, but we just need to get around to relative velocity minus. We're only moving at 26.3 meters per second, so that should be reasonably fine. We're just going to need to bring this in to... Are we on a collision course right now? We might be. It's not entirely clear. Okay, I'm going to start bringing down our speed here. Excellent. 20 meters per second, 15 meters per second, 10 meters per second, 5 meters per second, taking it down to about 1. Okay, I guess 0.6. So at this point, I want to take the Starship HLS, and we need to get maybe a little closer, actually. So let's warp in slightly closer here to within... Yeah, about 150 meters. Let's hop over to the Starship HLS, and we're going to need to open up this docking port. We'll also control from here. And we're going to grab this docking port as our target, and we're going to... Not RCS, we're just going to point at target. Okay. And now the question is, are we pointing at target from here? Well, it's fine. We'll just control from here, not like that'll change anything. And I want to... point at target. Without RCS, it's going to be a little bit awkward for us. Actually, hang on. We're going to need to change this a little bit. Yeah, we're going to need to. So for the moment, I want to just bring this in a little closer. What we need to do here, because we don't have RCS on here, it's going to be a little awkward for us. So we're going to have to be at the correct velocity and direction before we actually go for this. So I'm going to warp us in a little bit closer here. And yes, this is drifting off. That is understood. Okay. Somewhere around here or so. And that overshot a bit. So we're now moving away from this, and we need to physics warp here. We just need to flip this guy right on around. And we need to not be moving away. That is mission number 1. We just need to get into the correct orientation here. Okay. Now we need to bring this down to about, and I'm going to thrust limit this down to like 1% thrust. We need to get this down to be 0.0. It's just a little too sensitive right now. There we go. Now I'm going to point at target. And we're going to head in here, but this is probably not going to be perfectly accurate. Okay, that's 0.1. Confirmed. It's not perfectly accurate, but hopefully it's close enough. We're pretty close here. We'll see how much it drifts off. Fingers crossed that it's okay. But we may have to do a corrective burn. In fact, I'm going to do a corrective burn. So we're going to put this in kill rot, and we're going to need to burn somewhere up over this direction. Oh, wait, we're prograde. We're not retrograde. I did that wrong. We're going to have to do this down over this direction. Actually, that looks pretty decent. Okay, point at target. This is actually drifting on us due to the, like, parallax effect in the nav ball. So that's actually a good sign. But I do want to bring this down over this way just a smidge. Okay, that's better. It's not perfect. Let's put this right up over here. Yep, we're definitely getting some parallax there. And now let's point at target. Okay, so we're just slowly heading in towards target, which should be aligned nicely at this point. So the question now becomes, do we have enough in this with this added fuel? And we'll find out. There's a lot of lack of fuel in the Starship right now, for sure. So let's just get this on into position. I'll warp it in a little bit here. There we go. And we can see docking forces pulling us now, so we should be close enough. I don't think we'll have any issue whatsoever there. And we're docked. Beautiful. So that looked great. Now, I'm going to grab these kind of header tanks up here, and we're going to empty these tanks into that. That is step number 1. So we're going to actually close this tank for the time being, and we're going to empty this tank. And we can see, yeah, there's some fuel moving, but it is not the hugest amount of fuel. That's going into just these 2 tanks. This one is completely empty, and this one is mostly empty at this point. But that is a decent amount of fuel. No doubt about that. Okay, so this is now empty, and we can move it out of this adapter tank. And there'll be some fuel that comes out of that. It's not going to be quite as much. And that's the majority of our backup fuel there. So at this point, this stage is completely useless to us, and we can ditch that. So we can decouple this and get it out of here. I'll untrack it later. So we can just decouple this guy. That is no longer necessary. And now we just have this Orion at this point. The question then becomes, if we were to empty this tank, what would we be at? Well, I don't know that we want to do this. I'm just thinking right now about how much fuel that's going to be. Actually, I think we can do it and have enough fuel left over. Yeah, this is half. That'll work. That will work. So that's fine for the time being. So these 2 tanks are full. These tanks are not. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to move all of that fuel down here so that this is all in the bottom here, because I don't want to be having our center of mass up here. I want our center of mass to be lower. So we're just going to move that fuel down, and that'll be absolutely fine. And we'll see how much fuel that ends up actually being. The answer is it's not a whole lot, and this is exactly what I thought the answer to that would be. So let's just flow all of that fuel out down here, and yeah, we can see that's roughly about 1/3 of a tank here, including what was already there. So every other tank here is dry. So that is absolutely okay. The next thing that we want to do, no matter what, is we want to transfer our crew here over to the starship. So we're going to continue to do that. All of the crew transfers over. Then we're going to leave the Orion here in orbit. The question now becomes, how much fuel do we actually have on each of these parts? So we're going to undock here, and this will tell us. So we can see we've got 1,500 meters per second here. That is plenty to return home on. So I'm not concerned about that. Now for the starship. 2537. It feels like it's not quite enough, doesn't it? It really does feel like it's not quite enough. So I'm going to hop on back to the Space Center. And we're going to want to send a tanker out here. We should only have to do this once, I believe. Unlike in reality, where it's going to have to happen a ridiculous number of times. But we're going to have to only do this once. So a refuel here is, I think, necessary. I was hoping that that wasn't going to be necessary because of the Orion refuel that we had in there, but I don't think it's quite enough. Like I said, my cutoff for safety margins there is 3 kilometers per second, which we didn't quite have. So let's hop into the VAB and let's get ourselves another starship going. This is going to be very expensive, but we shouldn't have to do another one beyond this. And this is going to be a standard starship. Although I'm going to be, I'm going to make a couple of modifications. I'm going to call this a tanker starship. So we're going to get ourselves our starship HLS, but I don't actually want to base it off of that now that I think about it. I want it to just be the starship. Okay, so we're going to maintain the engines here. And we're going to drop our structural wings. Those are not necessary. I do want to have the extra fuel in these tanks. And what is our thrust to weight here at the beginning? Okay, I want to throw in a little bit more fuel here like we did previously. So something like a 128 there. And that puts our thrust to weight here at 1.66. That is an acceptable thrust to weight. That seems good. We're going to have this happen at the same time those main sails fire. and otherwise, that seems fine. So we're going to have to lift this up a little bit. Is that enough? That's too much. We're going to have to lower it down ever so slightly, and yes, this will be very, very expensive, but the idea behind this is I want this tanker module, in theory, to be able to deliver as much fuel as possible to the moon. So we're going to do that as best we can. This is going to have full fuel here, which we can get away with because we have the mainsails here. This will be very, very pricey. Very pricey indeed. I do think that we should keep probably 15 seconds of fuel in this to attempt recovery. If we can get recovery, that would be phenomenal. I think that we're going to have to do, I don't know, maybe even 20 seconds and have a re-entry burn. No, I think 15 seconds plus a re-entry burn would potentially be the way to go. Well, we'll see if we can recover it. If we can, that would be amazing. That will save us a lot of money. We don't want to have any crew in this. This is going to be entirely uncrewed. Okay, so we're going to lift it something like this. This is primarily intended, of course, to be a... Well, we could get rid of the Mark 1-3 command pod, actually. If we did that, there's nothing attached to it, so we could just get rid of that, and then we could have a new root part be a, like, fuel tank adapter that takes that spot. So it would be something like this, right? Although that's a little on the too big side. So let's get rid of that guy and go for... Would that be like this one? Yes, I believe this is approximately the right size. Okay, we can root off of that. And having that fuel will be very convenient for us, of course. And then we can bring in this to bring us down to the correct size. It's a little bit wonky looking, but that does give us that extra little bit of fuel. And we're going to call this the Starship Tanker model. This is not necessarily intended to be recovered, this up here. We'll probably just crash it into the moon or just leave it in orbit, one or the other. As far as the actual Starship model go, or rather the Starship HLS model, or not the HLS, the super heavy lifter here, I would like to recover that, but I don't know how viable that is in this configuration. So we'll see, but we're just assuming at this point that this is going to cost us $400,000 to deliver, but we shouldn't have to do this any other times. This should be sufficient fuel to finish the Artemis program. So, let's save this, and let's put it out on the pad. We want to have a lot of vertical speed with it, of course, and we're going to have a fair amount of burn time in this first stage. That's exactly what we want. But in terms of fuel rationing, that's going to be spicy. No doubt about it. I'm not sure that we managed to recover it. We'll try. It would be great if we did, but I'm not holding my breath. We'll put it that way. Okay, so we're going to go into kill rot, throttle up, and we should be exactly ready to launch right now. This is the poodles. This needs to be here. There we go. That'll work. Okay, so we're going to lift off here with our tanker model. And hopefully we don't have too much wiggling. There's a little bit, but it should be reasonably fine. Okay, so we're going to burn this until we are at 15 seconds remaining. So we need a good amount of vertical speed here. I'm going to go until our apoapsis is 20. We'll try. We'll see how that feels. And then we'll head over to a 45-degree angle. So it's currently about 5. And going up fairly slowly, but we are building up speed here. Thrust to weight is currently 2.17. Excellent. Now we're at about an apoapsis of 15. So that's looking good. 17, 18, 19, and 20. Okay, let's begin a turn here. And I'm just going to slowly bring this guy on over. We want to get as much horizontal speed as we can for the Starship. But the Super Heavy booster itself doesn't really need all that much. Some is useful, but we've only got about 10 seconds left to burn on it. So we're going to position about here. Looks good, and we can see our apoapsis going up nicely. Okay, cutting that off. And we are out of here. I want to be at horizontal velocity up at this time. So we're just going to burn horizontal velocity up with these mainsails. We are not currently utilizing our poodles, but we will shift over to those after this burn. So we're just going to push our apoapsis up here to somewhere around 200 kilometers. That's looking reasonably good. Our horizontal speed is not very high, that's for sure. Okay, we're seeing time to apoapsis currently dropping, but I think it'll be reasonably okay. We just need all the horizontal speed we can get, right? We're currently at about 60 kilometers. We might want to kick in our vacuum engines fairly soon, although I don't want to kick in only the vacuum engines at this time. Okay, vacuum engines going in right about now. That didn't go. Now. There we go. So that looks good. We are pushing up our apoapsis nicely. We're at about 100 kilometers. We've got some time here, but I want to push this up to 200. We can start shutting down our mainsails fairly soon, but I want to do that after this burn. This is definitely burning a lot of our Starship fuel. No doubt about that. But we only need to get to the moon, right? And then get into position. Okay, I'm going to start shutting down our mainsails here. So I'm going to pin this one open, and this one open. And we're going to... Oh, this one didn't actually shut down. Okay, that was awkward. Go to horizontal velocity up, please. I clicked on it, but I must have missed there. Okay, that's reasonably fine. We'll call this good enough. We need to hop over to our tanker. There we go. And we're just going to hop in here and see what we can get done here. So we know that we had a fair amount of time to apoapsis. On that, it was like 6 minutes, so that should be good enough. We do want to be at surface velocity minus. And we also want to deploy our air brakes and enable pitch and yaw. Okay, so we're a little bit off on our directionality here. Surface velocity minus, please. Don't kill rot. There we go. So we're heading over to surface velocity minus. Looks good. This is going nearly straight down at this time. So I'm going to do a braking burn fairly soon here. In fact, we're a little bit off of surface velocity minus right now. We may want to consider doing it now, but I'm going to wait on that. Okay. Braking burn now. Maintaining the rest of this. That should allow these air brakes to hopefully not burn off. And we'll keep an eye on this. I don't really trust it in atmosphere, but we'll see. We are slowing down somewhat, but we are accelerating. Our drag is helping, but it's not, you know, fantastic. There we go. Now our drag is starting to go negative. Okay. 5 seconds, allegedly. 4, 3, 2, 1, burning. Okay. This is looking kind of okay-ish. We do have a big tip there, but we recovered it. That's fantastic. We had 3 seconds left. That was really, really, really good. I like it. We're going to recover this vessel. That was huge. We had 3 seconds of burn time left, too. So we do know that 10 was too little. 12 is about the right time, but we should probably have a little bit of pad time there. Excellent. So we now know that with a re-entry burn there, it works just fine. That recovery is a doable thing. How much did we get back from that? I expect that to be a considerable amount. That's like half the cost. 238,113. That's huge. Okay, so we're going to head into the tracking station here. Our actual starship is going to be a little bit awkward here. It is, of course, on a suborbital trajectory right now. We've got plenty of time to get it into orbit. And we're going to be using just our vacuum optimized engines from here on out. So no main sails. That'll be absolutely okay. We are going to be able to deliver, I suspect, about a third of our fuel, which would be fantastic. So let's get ourselves into position for this burn. This is, of course, going to be a pure prograde burn from here. And that is going to be how much delta V to get this done? Oh, that's not much at all to get into orbit. Okay, so that looks good. We are going to head around to the node here. We'll get there in about 3 minutes. We should absolutely remember to extend our solar panels before we run out of electric charge, which we're going to do. We should also remember to extend our communitron. Okay, I actually meant to extend the antenna, not transmit data, but that's fine. Yeah, this isn't bad. So this is going pretty well here. We've got about 4 kilometers per second here, and by the time we get there, I think we'll be able to transfer about 3 kilometers per second. So that's pretty decent, all things considered. And of course, that'll be a little bit different once we get there, but it'll be a good amount. So that'll be absolutely wonderful. We're going to start this burn in about 10 seconds here. So right about now. It's going to be a 44-second burn to enter orbit, but that's acceptable. Cool. Coming out of physics warp, and we'll call that good enough. So we'll put that into kill rot, and at this point, of course, we want to intercept the moon. So the moon is out over here. That would mean a burn sometime around here-ish. And we can just get that on through here. What inclination are we? Oh, we're a little late for this burn, aren't we? Or I guess a little early. Yeah, something along the lines of this. Now we can definitely alter our inclination here. That will be cheaper for us. So what we could do is we could simply clear this out, set the moon as our target, and get the descending node, which will be about here, and we can fix this. So let's do that. Let's just get that fixed to be about here. So 45 meters per second looks good, and we'll just head on over to that node. We'll be there in about 10 minutes. Of course, turning this thing is kind of slow, and it is time to put a cut in here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and next episode, we're going to go refuel with this bad boy, and that will be absolutely phenomenal. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods. Have we been draining out of this? We have been. Okay. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings. And a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible, including ALS Gamer, Shadow Wolf, Kintogan, Ali Lee, Upper Cumberland Gamers, Nick Smarty, Dimitri H, Punching the Microphone, Soccerman12 UK, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video, and as always, I will see you all next time.